It's difficult to predict exactly what World War III might look like, but this weekend we got a preview of how a lot of people will react if and when it does break out. And what we saw wasn't exactly encouraging. It was sort of like a scene out of Dr. Strangelove crossed with some parts of Dumb and Dumber, with grainy videos of drone swarms added in, playing out all over the country. This was a spectacle that, unless you were glued to cable news or social media over the weekend, you might have missed, and if so, consider yourself lucky. As you've probably seen by now, Iran launched a swarm of drones and missiles towards Israel on Saturday, and for several hours as the attack unfolded, there was pandemonium online. There were reports of huge explosions in Tehran, suggesting Israel had already launched a massive counterattack. That wasn't true. There were Austin Powers steamroller memes mocking the extraordinarily slow travel time of the Iranian drones, which apparently take several hours to make the trip to Israel. And there were even dramatic photos of flight tracking radar data of a so-called doomsday plane leaving Israel, supposedly carrying Israel's cabinet away from a potentially catastrophic attack, which also wasn't true. It was all a very strange mixture of false information and hysteria. Now, not to be outdone, there was also evidently pandemonium in the White House. First, reporters said that Joe Biden would interrupt his vacation, imagine that, on the beach, to address the nation. And it's a big deal when Joe Biden does something like that, because normally it takes the release of a special counsel report proving that he's completely demented. But in this case, they said he was going to address the nation. And then the White House announced that actually Joe Biden's not going to address the nation after all. He's not going to say anything. And they called a lid for the day, and that was it. So we really had no guidance whatsoever from our supposed commander-in-chief as any of this was going on. And that was a deliberate choice. Turns out that as this attack on Israel was unfolding, the White House had a pretty good idea of what was coming and how it was going to play out. And that's because for about 2 weeks, Iran had been promising to retaliate against Israel for its military strike in Damascus on April 1st, which killed several Iranian military commanders. And Iran says that the commanders were inside an embassy, but they also concede, according to New York Times, that they were talking about military strategy for the war in Gaza. Quote, a member of the Revolutionary Guards, which oversees the Quds Force, told the Times that the strike had targeted a meeting in which Iranian intelligence officials and Palestinian militants were discussing the war in Gaza. Among them were leaders of Palestinian Islamic Jihad, a group armed and funded by Iran. Well, embassies aren't generally the place for strategic conversations like that. You kind of forfeit diplomatic protections when you use the building for military purposes. But in any event, Iran maintained that the Israeli strike was unlawful, and they vowed a response. But here's the thing. They apparently cleared that military response with Western powers. As the Jerusalem Post reports, quote, Iran informed Turkey in advance of its planned operation against Israel, a Turkish diplomatic source told Reuters on Sunday, adding that the U.S. conveyed to Iran via Ankara that its operation must be, quote, within certain limits. That means that the White House, I guess, greenlit some sort of Iranian military response. And seems like a pretty big story. But as of now, we don't know what exactly those limits might have been or whether Iran complied with them. But let's assume the story is accurate. The upshot is that for now, Iran's response, rubber-stamped by the White House, reportedly, doesn't appear to have done a significant amount of damage. Right now, Israel says that with the help from the United States, Britain, and apparently several Middle Eastern countries, including Jordan, it intercepted 99% of the drone and missile launches from Iran, which is not entirely surprising since the drones were traveling at slow speeds. At the same time, some ballistic missiles did land in Israel, particularly around a military base, causing some damage. There were reports of several injuries, including a 7-year-old girl who was seriously hurt by missile fragments. And that's where things stand now. But of course, further escalation is possible. It's difficult to say what will happen next. What we do know is that the response in this country has been pretty revealing. It tells us a lot about the priorities of our leaders and the level of insanity that normal, level-headed people are up against. For example, the Seattle Police Department announced yesterday afternoon on social media that, quote, SPD is closely monitoring the conflict between Israel and Iran. Now, this is a city where everyone's high out of their minds all the time. People are afraid to walk alone after dark or even in daylight. But don't worry, residents and vagrants of Seattle, your police department is closely monitoring a conflict 7,000 miles away from your city. Now, that announcement on social media came with a link to the Seattle police blotter and the slightly longer explanation raises more questions than it answers. Here's what it says, quote, "The Seattle Police Department is closely monitoring the conflict between Israel and Iran and are working with local and federal agencies to ensure the safety of Seattle community members. As a precaution, we will proactively increase patrols around infrastructures and sensitive areas. SPD's community liaisons are working with community leaders as a prevention measure. Currently, there are no specific or credible threats. As always, SPD is committed to the safety of Seattle community members." So what are they concerned about exactly? Are they concerned that Iran might attack Seattle next? And given how long it took Iran to get drones to Israel, I guess we can expect the attack on Seattle to happen sometime in the year 2027 or something. Or not at all, because there is, of course, absolutely no reason why any government official in Seattle, much less law enforcement officials, should be concerning themselves with a war halfway across the world. That's what's happening. Elsewhere on social media, immediately after this attack commenced, activists and the pundit class divided themselves up into teams. And it was, it's disconcerting to watch, but it's exactly what you expect. On one side, you had the Nothing Ever Happens crowd who dismissed this attack as yet another non-event. On another side, there were some sober, serious commentators. They were a distinct minority, but, you have some of them sometimes. And on the much larger third side, you had people treating this like a sporting event, basically. And as usual, when you're dealing with a sport, some people inevitably take it far too personally. They turn these events into their identity. They lose all perspective. They become determined to make the events in the Middle East about themselves. And they become very confused, even threatening, when other people don't agree with them. And for most people in this camp, they kept their frustrations on social media. But this phenomenon is not remotely limited to social media. There are now an increasing number of activists who are willing to appear in public and act on this insanity. Of course, a few weeks ago, as we all recall, an active duty member of the U.S. Air Force set himself on fire outside of the Israeli embassy in Washington. He was screaming "Free Palestine" as he killed himself. And then on Friday, there was a slightly less dramatic act of protest that took place at a city council meeting in Bakersfield, California. There's a woman named Reedy Patel who was apparently born and raised in Bakersfield, according to one of her online biographies. And she stood up at this meeting to urge the city council to endorse a ceasefire in Gaza. Now, as you may know, geographically here, Gaza is also many thousands of miles away from Bakersfield, and the city council in Bakersfield has precisely no ability to influence the government of Israel or any other country. The Bakersfield City Council has no one involved in the conflict in the Middle East is looking to Bakersfield for their guidance on this. Their authority is, mostly about fixing potholes and things like that in their own town. But that didn't stop Patel, who has a degree in neuroscience somehow, by the way, didn't stop her from stepping up to the podium and saying this. Watch.
Hi there, my name is Riddhi Patel. I'm here to speak in support of the City Council introducing a ceasefire resolution, specifically the one United Liberation Front has drafted. I don't have faith that you'll do this. You guys are all horrible human beings, and Jesus probably would have killed you himself. And the thing is, though, it's very clear to me as someone who's been an organizer for the past couple of years that none of you care because you guys don't care about anything happening in Palestine or any other country where oppression occurs because you don't care about the oppression occurring here. And I understand that you guys are all horrible people, but the thing is, 2,300 people being evicted in the last year, those are votes. And you guys, those are votes to win here in Bakersfield. And while you guys parade Gandhi around as a Hindu holiday called Chaitra Navratri starts off this week, I remind you that these holidays that we practice, that other people in the global South practice, believe in violent revolution against their oppressors. And I hope one day somebody brings the guillotine and kills all of you.
Okay. Now, so ceasefire resolution she wants from the Bakersfield City Council, which, I mean, who knows? Maybe that's what the Middle East is missing. Maybe that's why there's been centuries of conflict is just that they're waiting for Bakersfield. Maybe the resolution for Bakersfield comes in and that'll solve it. Who knows? But so far in that clip, she stopped short of saying that she's going to kill the mayor of Bakersfield or any of the city council members. Herself, she kind of stops short of that. She just says that Jesus would have killed them and that other people should kill them. So she's walking right up to the line, but isn't quite crossing it, at least not clearly. $20 barely gets you anything these days. You can't get a burger and fries for less than that anymore. But do you know what $20 will get you? From the cell phone company I use, Pure Talk, you can get unlimited talk, text, and plenty of 5G data for just $20 a month. Pure Talk gives you the same quality of service as your current cell phone provider, but for half the cost. The average family saves almost $1,000 a year, all with no contracts and no activation fees. You can switch to Pure Talk and keep the phone and phone number you currently use, or you can take advantage of their great deals on the latest iPhones and Androids. Make the switch. It's incredibly easy to do. Their U.S. customer service team can help you join Pure Talk in as little as 10 minutes. Choose to spend your hard-earned money with a wireless company that shares your values, supports our military and veterans, creates American jobs, and refuses to advertise on fake news networks. Stop spending ridiculous amounts on your phone plan. Go to puretalk.com/Walsh. Right now, my listeners can get an additional 50% off their first month. That's puretalk.com/Walsh. But that's not the interesting part of what she says in the clip. I mean, it's crazy, but it's not interesting. The interesting thing is how she ties the number of evictions in Bakersfield to what's happening in Gaza. This would have been a great moment for Rita Patel to go into detail about the homeless problem in California, what solutions she might have, what she wants the city council to do that they're not doing to address the problem. That's a topic that would actually have direct ramifications for the lives of Americans in her own community. But instead, here's what she says next. Watch.
And so there's no need to continue. In the last 5 years I've attended city council meetings, there's never been metal detectors. There's never been more cops. The only reason you're doing it is because people actually don't care if you guys don't like them, and they're actually resisting, so you want to criminalize them. So regardless of whether you elect people into office, they'll backstab you, they'll let you die, and for that reason, you guys want to criminalize us with metal detectors? We'll see you at your house. We'll murder you.
Next speaker, please.
Lance, followed by Kev, followed by Valeria.
Ms. Patel, that was a threat, what you said at the end, and so the officers are going to escort you out and take care of that.
Now, you can kind of tell from the total lack of reaction right after the death threat that nobody really pays attention in these city council meetings. You'd expect at least one person who's paying attention to, gasp, like it should be kind of a shocking thing to hear. But nobody's really watching. It takes them a few seconds, a delayed reaction to it. Fortunately, the internet got a hold of the clip and everyone was able to see the humor in this moment, as unsettling as it is. But still, it's kind of incredible how she threatens to murder the entire city council in such a casual, kind of like, oh, by the way, sort of tone. She notices her time is running out, and so she just drops the, oh yeah, well, I'm also going to murder the city council at their homes. Have a nice evening. And of course, the irony in the second clip is that she's speaking in protest of metal detectors at city council meetings. She's upset that they're setting up metal detectors because she's saying that we're not a threat to you. They're not necessary to have the metal detectors. And she's going to prove the metal detectors aren't necessary by murdering the people who requested them. So that's the logic here. Now, a couple of years ago, you'd expect someone like Rita Patel to probably get away with all that. After all, leftist activists have torched small businesses and churches with impunity in the past few years, and the only response by Democrats has been to cheer them on. And that's probably what Patel expected to happen. In fact, you could tell that she was getting her stuff in her purse and she was just going to walk out. She didn't think there was any issue. But she was surprised when they stopped her and said, oh, by the way, you threatened to kill government officials right in front of everybody. You're going to be arrested for that? She was surprised. She had no idea. And she was. And she seemed legitimately shocked to discover that openly threatening to commit first-degree homicide against government officials is a crime. She was also deleted from the website of the activist group where she worked on environmental issues, so she's apparently lost her job as well. And Patel now faces several counts of making terroristic threats. And when she appeared in court shortly afterwards, suddenly her demeanor had changed quite dramatically. Watch.
A deputy public defender entered not guilty pleas on Patel's behalf to 8 counts of threatening a public official and 10 counts of making terroristic threats. She's due back in court later this month.
Not so confident now, is she? And I know they enter the not guilty plea. It's a public defender. It's what they're going to do. That's a tough case. That's going to be a tough one to. She's on video. She says, and I quote, "We're going to come to your house and murder you." That's as explicit as you could possibly be with a threat. Now, it's not hard to watch that footage and wonder what would happen if we decided to enforce the law against all of these unhinged left-wing activists who think they can commit crimes with impunity. Would all of them buckle as easily as this deranged Indian American woman did? Probably. The disturbing part, obviously, is that we're importing a lot of people into this country who openly despise us, to the point of using violent threats to get what they want. Instead of discouraging conduct like Patel's, we're doing everything we can to get more of it. Last week, I spoke at length about the Death to America chants that broke out at a rally in Dearborn, Michigan. And if you didn't see that as a reminder, here's what that looked like.
Malcolm X said, and I quote, "We live in one of the rottenest countries that has ever existed on this earth." It's not Genocide Joe that has to go. It's the entire system that has to go. Any system that would allow such atrocities and such devilry to happen and would support it, such a system does not deserve to exist on God's earth. And so when these fools ask us if Israel has the right to exist, the chant "Death to Israel" has become the most logical chant shouted across the world today.
So these, of course, are people who voluntarily live in the country that they say is the rottenest on the planet. They're agitating for the murder of Americans and Jews. To the extent any of these people are non-citizens, which quite likely describes many of them, they should be removed from this country immediately. But that won't happen because Michigan's top Democrats endorse all this. They've refused to condemn those chants. In fact, Rashida Tlaib just snapped at a Fox News reporter who dared to ask her whether she condemned those chants. Let's watch that again.
Congresswoman Tlaib,
Fox News. I don't talk to Fox News.
at a rally in your district, people were chanting "Death to America." Do you condemn?
Talk to Fox News.
Do you condemn chants of "Death to America"?
I don't talk to people that use racist tropes.
Why can't you just say whether or not you condemn people chanting "Death to America"? Why are you afraid to talk to Fox?
Fox News is not listen, using racist tropes towards my community is what Fox News is about, and I don't talk to Fox News.
Is "Death to America" racist?
Fox News.
Is chanting "Death to America" racist?
I'm talking about your guys' racist tropes. You know, you guys know exactly what you do. I know you're Islamophobic, but you guys got to go deal with it on your own self. You're not going to use me.
So it's using a racist trope to air footage of a large crowd in Dearborn, Michigan, saying "Death to America" and "Death to Israel" at the International Al-Quds Day rally. If we once again, it's the crime of noticing. So if you notice that this is happening, then you are racist just for noticing it. That's according to Rashida Tlaib, and apparently the governor of Michigan, Gretchen Whitmer, who has refused to take questions about the incident, airing footage of what the diverse residents of Dearborn are doing is Islamophobia, apparently, which, if you read between the lines, is quite an admission by Rashida Tlaib. She's saying that "Death to Israel" and "Death to America" is a core teaching of Islam, is what she's claiming? Because if you criticize the chants, then you're criticizing Islam. You're Islamophobic, is what she's saying. That might not be what she meant to say, but it is, of course, the implication. Because what she could have said was, no, everyone should criticize people who say "Death to America." That's not Islamophobic, because that's not what Islam is about. Those people are not with us. They're not part of us. I condemn that. I condemn what they said. I mean, she could have said that, but she didn't. What's become clear, even as Democrats like Rashida Tlaib want to pretend otherwise, is that the rally in Dearborn is just one part of a much larger picture. So here, for example, is footage from a Teamsters conference in Chicago on Saturday, which was obtained by the Free Press. This is the largest private sector union in the country. Hundreds of activists attended, and they were quickly told how to chant "Death to Israel" and Death to America in Farsi. Watch.
So I'm going to teach you a chant in Persian that you can use if you ever encounter those Zionist freaks, whether they be Iranian or whatever, all right? Now, I don't drink margaritas, but we all know what a margarita is. We all know what a bar is. So you're going to say, Marg Bar. Marg Bar. Marg Bar Israel. 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 Thank you. What does that mean? Oh, so it has two meanings depending on who's asking. It can mean death to or down with. So can we get a Marg Bar America? We can get a Marg Bar America. Yes, we can. Marg Bar America. Marg Bar America. Marg Bar America. Marg Bar America. Thank you.
Once again, everybody in that room should be deported. I don't even care where they came from. Just deport them somewhere. I don't care if they're citizens. I don't care. It doesn't matter. Just deport all of them. Get them out of the country, or throw them in prison. You know, because that is a treasonous behavior. So that, and then deport them. I mean, we could talk about the order of events here. Now, there are a lot of stock anti-union arguments you hear a lot, and they're pretty much all valid. Yes, unions reward inefficiency. They protect incompetent employees while also siphoning money away from them. They result in higher prices and worse products, worse teachers, worse infrastructure. And these arguments are all familiar because they're true. What's less well known is how many unions, including the largest one in the country, are now openly preaching genocidal rhetoric against the United States and Israel. I'm not talking about genocidal rhetoric in the abstract kind of leftist sense. You just heard it. I'm talking about they're actually saying death to America. This is a threat that, unlike whatever's happening in the Middle East right now, is already here. And instead of recognizing it, both parties seem completely uninterested in doing anything about it. The Teamsters just donated $45,000 to the Republican National Committee as well as the Democrats. Why did the Republicans accept that donation? Why haven't they returned it? Why is the GOP courting the support of organized labor? Why aren't any Republicans calling out what the Teamsters just did in Chicago? Like, why isn't that video everywhere? Those are all good questions. Unless we want a lot more Reedy Patels showing up at city council meetings, it's not a rhetorical question either. The next Reedy Patel might actually follow through on her threats. And if so, she'll have a lot of accomplices. In 2020, we saw just how easy it was for a mob to torch entire city blocks in the name of racial justice and BLM. It's not especially difficult to imagine what mobs motivated by outright genocide could be capable of. And as drones get shot down over Jordan, this is the threat that's barreling towards America. The choice is simple. We can either get people like this out of the country, or we can allow them to destroy it from within. Hey, YouTube, thanks for listening to the show. If you'd like access to my full show with no ads, you should go to dailywire.com and use promo code Walsh to get 2 months free on all annual plans. See you there.